Okay, so as a prescriber, I've got actually access to everything here at the moment because I'm a super user, but prescribers generally might have access to most of the functionality here, apart from perhaps the pharmacist screen. But luckily enough, the system is very intuitive. You can, if you've not got access to something, you don't see it. So you're not presented with stuff that's gone grey and you're not sure why it's grey. I've got access to the prescribing screen here. Things I can access here on the top left, and things I can do with the current screen are on the right here. So I can sort the view if I want to. I can sort by different routes. I'm only presented with the routes that are currently prescribed. I can sort by anatomical therapeutic classification. So if I want to see all drugs prescribed for a certain area of the body, I can do that there. I can also sort by custom groups. So as a trust, you can have certain groups of medications if you want to, which will sort. We at the moment, we have fluids, medicinal gases, stat doses when needed. We have insulins, antimicrobials, and we also have blood products as well. So, but if you wanted, you can sort by certain custom groups. An example might be palliative care drugs if you wanted those all to group together, perhaps if you wanted to see those. And then there's ways of sorting the system. You can look at the active meds, all the medicines, so anything that's been discontinued as well, if you wanted to have a look at the total history, things prescribed in the last so many days, 3 days, or you can choose a specific date that you want to look at just via a calendar control. So that's nice and easy. You don't have to keep scrolling back and forth. And then you can look at things in time and date orders and descriptive order. So you can sort the chart to suit your own view really, but all the information is always consistent between the screens and for all the users. So our drug dictionary is the DMD, so the NHS drug dictionary, the dictionary of medicines and devices. So it's important that we support that as the necessary drug dictionary to format your formularies. We have a module which we supply to you called the MedsConfig module. It's a very comprehensive module, which typically the pharmacy teams would create the formularies based on trust, advice and guidance. And then you can create formularies to present to your users to promote the drugs that you want them to prescribe. They can also flag drugs as being different types, so high risk critical drugs and that kind of thing, black triangle, and they can also put specific warnings on drugs if you wish when they come up, and also guidance and advice. It's a really excellent configurable module which you would get to use to configure your drug database. So for the prescriber now looking, you can see on the left hand side I've got some drugs already prescribed for this patient. There's some fluids prescribed. You can see the description of the drug is there, and then there might be an indication as well. So you can put indications for medication. You've got some stat doses, a morphine stat, and some when required morphine, and you've got the route there, indication. It's a very intuitive system. I know I work for Better, but I do find this system really easy to navigate around. Compared to a lot of systems I've worked with in the past. So if you click on something, you can see more about it. So for instance, I click on the potassium chloride there. I can see the details of the rate, who prescribed it, when they prescribed it. It's waiting for a pharmacist review. So any icons used within the system are described here in the legend. If I click on the audit trail, I can see what the prescription was initially, if there's anything changed, and who prescribed it. So I'll probably repeat myself a few times, but this audit trail is really important within the system, because when it's live, you'll find that the nurses particularly are always looking at what's happened with the medicine, or who's done what, who did that, who changed that. So it's really important that front end audit trail is really good. So as a prescriber now, I might want to go and look at the medication history. So what did the patient come in on? So we have a dedicated screen for that. Here's the medicines reconciliation screen. And what this does is allows for different roles to enter a drug history. And the drug history is dedicated on this screen. So you can enter it with as much or as little detail as you require. And you can also utilize different information to get that medicine on admission list. So if I start a new list here, I can utilize information which has come from the previous discharge. So the previous discharge was, the most recent one was just updated today. But if the patient had been in multiple times, below this there would be more discharge prescriptions you could view if you wish to. Also, we do have work that we're doing with NHS Digital on GP Connect. So we're going to be able to import medications from the patient's GP record via GP Connect. And those medications can be imported directly into this medication on admission list from GP Connect. Now that's really exciting because that's not been possible before. No one's managed to do that. Historically, it was very hard to do that because the data of the prescriptions, the prescription data wasn't in a format that would allow it to be inherited by the hospital systems. But this work we've done with with NHS Digital GP Connect is meant that that's going to be possible in the next 6 to 9 months. So when you are creating a medicines on admission list, not only can you use previous discharge prescriptions, you can use the patient's GP list as well, and also in future probably medication from other sites where it's been prescribed. So maybe a specialist clinic, a tertiary centre, if that medication is available via a platform. So it means that patient can have all that data brought in one place and won't have to rely on lists that they're bringing around. So this patient was in recently, and so what I want to do is continue on with the bisoprolol. They're still taking that. They also are still taking the bumetanide. Co-caraldopa though, since the discharge, it's actually been increased to 5 times a day, I've discovered. So if I enter that as 5 times a day, I can actually put the source of that information. So there is a requirement that medicines reconciliations are done within, I think, 24 hours of admission. And as part of that requirement, you have to put the source of information or the sources of information. So it's defaulted to previous discharge here, but I can change that to patient's own meds, or a patient or a relative, that kind of thing, and that will store within the system. So as you can see, as I add things across, they become a different colour, so you can't add them twice, and you can see which ones you've done already. So I might want to just continue on adding things across as they are. So say I'm just assembling a medication on admission list. I might be happy that that's complete now and don't want to add the other things. They perhaps have been stopped since the last admission. Now, this is where the system accommodates now for different roles doing this. So you might find that a medication on admission list is assembled by and collated by a pharmacy technician or a pharmacist, and they wouldn't perhaps go ahead and prescribe anything for the patient now in the inpatient episode. So if that was the case, they could confirm that list there, and that list would be there stored in the system, and then the prescriber who came next could decide that they were going to prescribe or not some of those items. But just for the sake of speed for the demo, and I'm a super user, I'll just continue on with that. So I have a medication on admission list, and now I want to prescribe some of those items into the inpatient list so that the patient receives them while they're in hospital. I'm deciding that I'm going to add the ibuprofen. As you can see straight away, I've got the sensitivity check here. It's telling me that the patient's actually allergic to non-steroidals, and why do I want to prescribe that? I've got to put an override reason in there. Now, we recognise that warnings can really burden a prescriber when they're prescribing, so that to the extent that quite often prescribers will click through them just to get past them and maybe ignore a really important one. So what we allow within the system is that you can have all the lesser warnings, perhaps the less significant, less risky warnings to be shown to the user, but not necessarily require an override such as this one. But the crucial ones, we can set that you require an override reason. And this is done in a passive way, in a way, so that the prescriber can still be going about their task, but they're not blurted up in the face with a warning that they just want to click out of, so it doesn't disturb their thought to action process. The fact these things are make the system the way it is, which is very usable and not a frustrating system. It's very slick to use. So what I would sensibly do is actually remove that, and I would stop it and put a reason for stopping as an allergy there and confirm it. So as I'm building this up now, this list, this is linked now to the discharge summary. So every action I'm taking will now follow into the discharge summary to inform the GP or whoever's intercepting the patient as to what's been happening while they're in hospital. So if I continue on with the digoxin, I continue on with the co-careldopa. The bumetanide, I might decide that actually I'm going to stop that. There might be a different reason behind that. Might be something in there, so you can just put a reason in there, and that reason will feed into the discharge summary. Items that you might not be sure if you want to prescribe them yet because you're waiting on results, you can prescribe and suspend, or you can suspend until discharge. So that's a really useful function if you want to get them in the list but you're not sure whether the patient needs them just yet, and then you can put a reason why, which will be visible to the users in the system. So now we've prescribed some of those items there, and we're going to confirm that, and that will generate medication into the system. Also, we've now got this medication on admission list, which has been updated. You can see, if you look visually, they match to the items on the right hand side. So as the discharge summary builds up, as the patient is in, we will see changes to this discharge summary, and then we will in a while start the discharge prescription, and again you can see how the system looks. We've got the review function there, so if the medication on admission list has been generated by a pharmacy staff, they can then review that, and then that's marked as being reviewed by them, so it's been okayed. So back to the prescribing screen. So for our prescriber now, they've seen that they've added regular prescriptions there, and you can see from these ones that I've added, they've got an icon on the left hand side, which is an arrow coming in. So that means it was an item that was on admission. So that's a visual distinction there. It's also got this little pestle and mortar in an orange circle. That's an indication to show that it's not had a pharmacist review yet. And if you're ever not sure what those mean, just click on it and it will show you the items here and show what they are meaning in the system. So you've always got that way of entering the system there with the audit trail as well. So for a prescriber, I've also got the actions here in the burger menu to the right hand side of the drug. Because I'm a super user, I've got access to everything here, but I'll just go through everything with you. So we've got the options to edit, so you can edit prescriptions, you can suspend them as I did before, you can stop them, we can set things for self-administration. So if a patient's taking their own medicines, maybe their own inhaler, and you can set it for self-administration, and that will chart automatically, or as they tell the nurse that they've taken it. You can schedule an additional administration, so should you need to add a sudden stat, you can do that here, and record an additional administration. You can prepare medicines, so if you need to prepare a label to stick on an IV, that's where that's done here. And also you can access the drug information. So again, we've got the link to the BNF, and this is where you can have your own local links to your guidance or any documentation that you might want.